All right, Neil, thank you so much for being on People and Places and How We Use Spaces. This is fun.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, you are kind of a pro in this whole podcast business, but I'm really interested to learn how you got connected to real estate. Was that something that you have been doing your whole life, or how did your journey start?
All right. Well, I'll take you back to the beginning. You're taxing me here, almost 20 years now at this point. So I got out of college, played football at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and I came back
That
here to
is super
yeah.
fun. What position?
I played offensive tackle, so I was a whole bunch heavier back in the day when I played.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, go ahead.
So I graduated there. I came back here to Des Moines, Iowa, where I was born and raised, and went to work for a bank. Was there a couple of years. And I'm talking to my mom one day. I'm the eldest of four sons. So I've got three younger brothers, and I'm talking to my mom, and she's like, you know what? All you kids are out. It's time for me to go do something. I don't know what I should do. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, Mom? You drug me around to more open houses than I could ever count as a kid, and we never moved. And so you love houses, you love people. Why don't you just become an agent? Go sell houses. She literally thought about it. I mean, this was like 5 seconds later. She goes, you know what? That is what I'm going to do. And sure as heck, that's what she went and did. Now, fast forward a year,
And
she's
this
telling
is
me
while you were working at the bank.
I'm at the bank. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Fast forward a year, and we're comparing paychecks. She makes twice what I make working. She's first year in, makes twice what I make working at the bank. And I thought,
Wow.
I come from a very competitive house. And so I go, you know what? Mom can do that. I can do better. And that's when I decided to get into real estate as a residential agent.
Residential. Okay, got it. And so you just went to work as an agent.
Went to work as an agent, grinding away.
And what kind of the legend has it that you were pretty successful pretty early on, correct?
Rookie of the year, and then fast forward a couple of years, joined Remax. I was in the top 1%, probably third year in. Fifth year in, I bought a Remax, built a team, became the number one Remax agent in Iowa when I was 29, and then ultimately hit a fan. Hit a ceiling, hit rock bottom, if you will. Doing this when you can work any hour of the day as a real estate agent, that meant one obviously tends to work every hour of the day.
Right.
And so there is no stopping. And you think about the residential versus the commercial side, you're typically dealing with business owners, business people, all sorts of business oriented folks. On the residential side, you're dealing with consumers. And when do they want to see homes? When they're not working.
Yeah. Especially then, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And so I got to a point where literally I almost lost my family. My wife had all the kids packed up, ready to go. And I begged and pleaded with her to not and give me a time period to change my ways. And 30 days later, I had sold my Remax and I left the residential real estate brokerage business.
And just left for what?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What was I going to do to blaze a new trail and figure it out? And that involved a year long of not figuring it out. Fortunately, I've been successful in stock money way, so there was not any sort of financial stress, but more of an emotional, like, what in the world am I going to do? A year goes by. I have no real answer. I've tried a whole bunch of things, no real solution. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get back into real estate, but I'm going to get back on the investing side. And so that was the entry point back in the industry, investing in single family homes.
Really? Single family homes. And what, that was something you knew, right? So that made the most sense to you at the time, right?
I made the most sense. I know how to value them. I know the area. I can put numbers to them. At that point, I had known a handful of contractors. So I think I can figure out how to go remodel a place and do some fixing and flipping. And so that was my entry point back into it.
So you were flipping versus holding and renting.
That's where I started. And then that eventually led into holding residential real estate, holding rentals.
Single family, or did you move into
single family? Yep.
Okay.
Single family. Good.
What years were you renovating property and selling them?
About 8 years ago, 10 years ago, somewhere in that range would have been my first, about 8 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So the market was pretty robust then.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Market had been, just different timing of that, and And finding those properties you had to work pretty hard at that as well, I would think.
Yeah, that is an art and a science at the same time, trying to figure that piece out, which has gotten way more challenging over the years. As the market improves, you see this in every cycle. As the market improves, things get really good. A couple of things happen. All the investors come out of the woodwork. Anybody who's
Sure.
ever watched an HGTV show, because there's a whole bunch
Right.
of money to be made, and the number of licensed agents goes dramatically up.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were your biggest learnings during that time period? I mean, because you've gone on now to like teach other people how to do these kinds of things, right?
Yeah. So my biggest lessons coming through that is flipping house is just a different job. There was more control over time. I mean, it's a better job than being an agent for me.
Okay.
Um, but it's just a job. And then I morphed into single family rentals, bought dozens and dozens of those. And my lessons I learned there is single family investing for passive income might be the biggest lie this industry has ever told. There's nothing passive about investing in single family homes.
Please say a little bit more about that.
Oh, I mean, what's the old saying? Tenants, termites, and toilets. Well, you have all those along with like everything else that you can imagine. Like anything that somehow, I buy a quality home, a place I would even live in, and things I had lived in were very similarly in my past. Somehow things only break in these houses. They don't ever break in my own house. Storm door doesn't break in my own house. It's 18 years old. It's never been touched. It doesn't break. Somehow these people destroy these homes, and they're not. I'm not talking about dumps. I'm talking about nice homes, quality areas. Um, it's just crazy. And then the inevitable will happen. 2 years ago, we had a water line, a water line break right where it connected to the street or into the city's main water.
Sure.
Well, the city's main water is under the middle of a 4-lane street. And this is my problem now, which means I had to go bring in a company to go cut out the street, to
Mm-hmm.
dig down, to then replace the line, to then put the street back in. $14,000, what it costs to get water fixed in this house.
Yeah, but that house had to be cash flowing at least that.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe
exactly.
I've got a little
Maybe,
experience in this
maybe,
area as
yeah,
well.
maybe not that for this year or next year or the next year, all combined up into one. Correct.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, but
So,
thankfully, about 5 years ago, I stumbled into commercial real estate, and that's ultimately what put me on a completely different path.
okay. So what'd you trip on? How'd you stumble?
I got a call from an agent, going, "Hey, I got an off-market deal. It's an industrial property, 16,000 square feet. Here are the specs. Do you want it?" And I'm of course like, "Well, I don't know enough about this, so let me like Google and figure this out." And so that's what I did, figured it out. And then I was faced with the question, is what I'm doing now going to get me to where I want to go? And the answer was no. And therefore, I bought the property and still own it today.
Did you know where you wanted to go?
Where I wanted to go, passive income. So I wanted to be able to do something, take action today and get paid forever. Take action today to get paid forever.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And single families were not it. And then, ultimately through that, get time back, right? Because if we can earn money through an asset, that means I don't have to earn money through my time.
That's a great statement. But it takes capital to buy those buildings, and so how do you decide what to buy? How do you find the funds to do it? What's your strategy?
Yeah. Well, from there it was, I get a few months into that one, and nobody calls me anymore. And I'm going, well, I'm the manager in this thing. So I think I might be onto something. And that led into the next one, which was a retail strip mall, 10 units. And, just work through the numbers, going, can I manage this? What's my downside? What's my upside? Can I get it to make sense? And does it make sense today? And can I improve it? And so pulled the trigger on that one, which was a dynamite transaction. And then then I was like onto it. I was a dog with a bone. I was on to, let me read everything, consume everything, and just get out there and start buying and doing other things. For me, I was fortunate in my 20s to make real money. And so, and I'm not a big spender. So It wasn't until this year have we ever taken a dollar from any other investor.
Wow. And so now you are raising funds and purchasing properties on behalf of others?
Yeah, you got it. This year. And so not just any investor, I came from a world of being a residential real estate agent. In fact, I'm still a broker today. I still have a brokerage that another partner owns. I'm the managing broker of. There's a small brokerage.
And residential.
On the residential side.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't transact. I haven't participated. I couldn't even unlock a house key if you wanted me to.
Got it.
So I handle all the legal and the marketing stuff on that side of things. And it's because it continues to keep me plugged into the residential market. We still do some fixing and flipping there, but more importantly, it keeps me plugged into real estate agents. It's the world I came from, a world in which I loved and loved the people of it, a world that ultimately set me free from a career in banking that I was doomed to stay in, I suspect, forever. And so as a result, you pull a lot of investors who are real estate agents,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
who they know, like, and trust real estate as an asset over the stock market, right? But they don't want a second job. They're too busy as it is. They're high producing agents. They pay too much in taxes. They want to find a way to invest and reap the rewards from passive income. And that's ultimately what we deliver.
Interesting. And how does that feel to kind of be like the responsibility of handling the responsibility of other people's money? I mean, it's a different thing than being kind of your own independent owner.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think being an agent conditioned me for that. There's a fiduciary responsibility when it comes to being an agent to serve your client. And that means help guide them towards a property in which, if there's red flags, you better be able to call these things out. They entrusted you and are drawing on your experience to help put them to a house or to help sell their house successfully. And so you want to help navigate that type of transaction. And for the average person, it's the largest single financial asset they will ever own in their life. It's a big deal. And so I think that experience conditioned me to have deep personal respect for other people's money,
right?
And employ the same principle here. Still same. This is just a fiduciary responsibility as well.
Yeah. And you said specific investors, kind of what are you looking for as far as investors go, or how do you choose who you're going to partner with?
Oh, on the investor side,
Yes.
when an agent reaches out to us and connects, we walk somebody through our formal process. First, it just starts with the conversation. Here's what we do. Tell us about yourself. What are you trying to accomplish? What do you do now? What's your experience? And it's largely educating them on what we do and understanding them, because candidly, we're not a perfect fit for everybody. We want to, if somebody has a short-term goal, you need to be a place in a year. Most of our investments aren't going to line up for a year, right? We're 3, 4, 5, 6 years out typically in a transaction.
Sure.
So it's having that conversation with somebody, knowing that we're a good fit. Another example of it is, and we get this on occasion. Hey, here's what I'm doing, and I've only got $100,000 to my name, and I want to invest it with you. I don't want to be the first 100,000 you take or the last 100,000. I don't want to be in a position where if something goes challenging or something goes wrong in your personal life, that all of a sudden you now have a need because you're into an illiquid investment. And it just can't get undone real quick for that person.
Right.
That there's pros and cons to the illiquid investment, but that's the con. The pro is it's illiquid. What does that mean? It means that you're not subject to the ups and downs of a stock market that have people freaking out. That
Sure.
values don't change overnight. It's a slow moving beast.
Right.
Over the long term, it works exceptionally well.
And how do you find the deals? I mean, that's hard.
Oh yeah, finding the deals is challenging. It's certainly uniquely challenging in this year. So it's building a network of real estate brokers. We're trying to find very hard. We're trying to find brokers who understand what we're looking to accomplish and the markets we're looking to accomplish it. Know that when we're going to engage in an agreement, a contract, that we're actually going to close, we're going to live up and we can actually get to the finish line. And we've demonstrated that over multiple investments, and at this point in multiple markets. So up until 22, we had only ever invested in Iowa, all across the state, but multiple places in Iowa. And 23, the market's changed. And so it has us going out and transacting through the Midwest. It's very specifically focused in the Midwest. And so we've completed multiple transactions now through the Midwest and continue to seek those out.
What is the remainder of the qualities of your acquisition criteria? Are you, looking for what kind of property types, what kind of size, what is an ideal property that you're trying to identify?
Right over home plate. I'll give you that. Right over home plate is industrial building, 20 to 50,000 square feet, single tenant, triple net, with a value add component of some nature. And so for you and those who are seasoned in this industry, they're going, what's a value add component in industrial? Well, an example would be mark to market in rents. So I'll elaborate on that. If we both know rent rates have really run up very heavy the last handful of years. And unlike apartments, for example, where you can reset somebody's rent typically on a year and every year, on the industrial side, somebody may have signed a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year lease. We've got one asset in our portfolio with, when you include the options, it's a 35-year lease. That means they know exactly what they're paying from the day they sign that lease. 34 years from now, they know exactly what they're going to be paying in rent. Well, okay. So on occasion, 34 years comes up, right? The day has come. They are out of lease. Now it's time to renegotiate. And that means mark to market, moving what they were paying to what the market is demanding and commanding right now. So there's an example of that. It's just bringing rents to where they should be. Other times it's maybe it's a modified gross lease. Maybe there's multiple tenants. That's just next to over home plate, if you will. And we can morph that to a triple net over a period of time. We acquired an asset earlier this year, which came with 2 additional building parcels, a total of 6.5 acres. That was not valued into the deal. And so now we find ourselves with 2 buildable lots that we have for sale on either outright or on a build to suit basis. So there's a couple of ways which we can realize some value there.
Sure. Well, in addition to all of your success in real estate, you're kind of a media mogul, writing a book, doing the podcast. Talk to me about kind of your strategy around all of those other aspects of what you're doing. Why do that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, I wrote the book, my first book in 21, all on the basis of hiring. So it's all focused on 4 people inside of our industry, whether it's residential or commercial, doesn't really matter. But if you're focused on investing, it's how to hire. And
so that's interesting that you would kind of, and that's unicorn hunting for real estate investment companies, right?
You got it.
And it's interesting that you would write your first book on hiring. So tell me more about why that was so important, or that made sense to you.
Yeah, it's my belief that there's no greater investment that you can make than inside the organization and the people specifically. That the most money I've ever made have come through correct hires. Has not come through another asset. And so that far and away is the backbone of how we've had any level of success at any level of scale is through the people in the organization.
Yeah. And give me your top tips, I guess, from that book with leaving us a little bit more as to why we want to go out and get that.
Yeah, there you go. Top tips. And so I'm a large advocate of hiring remote people, remote US, specifically remote US. And then, the biggest thing is, okay, I want remote US talent and I don't want to pay any more than I have to pay in my market. Meaning if I could get somebody in my market and it costs me X, I don't want to have to go to New York City and pay X times 2, right? I'd rather go to Nowhereville, USA, and I'll pay 80% of X, preferably. And so there is a strategy in the book, and I lay out exactly how to do it. So if you like standard operating procedures, you'll love this book because it literally is going to walk you through step by step how to do everything. And so I walk you through how to research other cities, other areas inside, ultimately the cities inside this country, compare that on a cost of living basis to yours, and then specifically how to market in those areas for top talent.
Interesting. And you mentioned that there's another book. Is that what you said?
Well, it hasn't been pinned yet, but I know there's at least one more inside of me. I'm sure it'll be on specifically focused on commercial real estate, but it's probably a year or two out, I suspect, before I fully commit to it. But there'll be something forthcoming.
I saw that one of the comments in your book was that, if you had $86,400 every day and you used them up every day, what would you do with that? And if you could expand on what your analogy was there, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's all a function of time, right? Is that we are as humans, our greatest non-renewable resource is time. And so if you thought about it from that money, time as your bank, is how do we invest each one of those, ultimately seconds and then minutes and then hours and roll up the time from there.
That's how many seconds are in a day, right?
You got it. That's how many seconds are in the day.
And so I thought that was interesting, having now had this conversation with you, because time clearly was a real motivator in how you ended up where you are today. And crafting what you do and how you do it is really a function of making the best use of those minutes for your family and for you, and for, generating that income. And you found commercial real estate can do that for you.
Commercial real estate can do it. And ultimately, it's a wonderful business where as long as you structure everything correctly, think about the alternatives, think about the long term, where we can do work today and get paid next month, the next month, the next month, all the way out to, conceptually eternity.
Well, and what do you think about, timelines? So, if you're a young kid investing and you've got a long, timeline, you don't necessarily have the funds, right? But if you're an older person like me, and you might have a couple of dollars, but you don't want to take the risk and you don't have that timeline, how do you justify commercial real estate as it relates to time being how old someone is and what they should be looking at?
Yeah, to each of those at the individual level.
Yeah.
I mean, so for the younger person, it's ultimately get exceptionally good at something to where you can produce a lot of income, whether that's commercial real estate, being a residential real estate agent, being a doctor, lawyer, anything. It doesn't matter. Then your ability to effectively employ those dollars in real estate, understanding that you have a long time frame, and then understanding your risk tolerance. So it's not just about time, it's about your risk tolerance. Because I know a whole bunch of people who are, let's call it into their autumn years in life, they're still want a percentage of risk because they love the game and they want, they don't need the money to live. And so occasionally they can take a flyer on something. And so, those types of people end up in new construction development, ground up deals, land, versus other people, if you need or want, you're more sit kind of in the middle. Where I would sit probably is I buy for cash flow. Is this thing needs to make sense now. It needs to be underwritten. We're going to put appropriate levels of debt on it and needs to pay back. Just like buying a house with at an appropriate price with an appropriate level of debt, and there needs to be a tenant in it. That thing just needs to be back.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I love that idea. My dad used to always say, you make a living from 9 to 5, and you build wealth from 5 to 9.
That's
and
right.
And so, thinking that you can, multiple streams of income, et cetera, it's not about just having a job or just doing commercial real estate in some cases,
Right.
Really understanding that they kind of can work in tandem.
When they're best when they do. There's no doubt about that. And for those of us who are working inside commercial real estate, we still just invest in commercial real estate as well.
Yeah.
It is one of the best places, if not or I'd argue the best place. Once you understand it and get your head wrapped around it, which is not that hard to do, and from an asset standpoint, and then it becomes finding the operators that you connect really well with and can know and like and trust them.
So this is kind of an interesting time period where, some of the deals that got done a few years ago at super low interest rates are going to reset and have reset. And where do you see the opportunity in that as as these owners go to look for new debt or to reset their loans at current interest rates, do you feel like there's opportunity in that for you?
I think we're standing, if I had to liken it to the residential real estate industry, we're standing in 2006. What was taking place through the early mid 2000s was a whole bunch of adjustable rate mortgages were written, 3 and 5 year adjustable rate mortgages. And that means when their 3 and 5 years were up, those rates were up, and they hit it ultimately an index, and their rates adjusted largely up 3, 4, 5% in many cases. And we all know what happened at the end of that story, right?
Right.
The commercial mortgages as a whole largely are written on 5-year fixed rates, right? 5-year fixed rates are just what you were saying. They were done a few years ago. They were done at 3, 3.5, 4%. And now the rate's 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8%. And they're not going to make the numbers work. So you're ultimately, some of these folks are going to be faced with a choice. It's either write a check to keep the property, give the property back, or sell the property. And we are going to see a whole bunch of blood in the streets, I suspect, over the course of the coming years. If the caveat is, if interest rates hold, if all of a sudden they go back to 3%, everything I just said is out the window. But if interest rates hold, there's going to be a lot of pain. Really high quality, tremendous assets that would not have been sold, that would not have traded, that one couldn't get their hands on in a lifetime are going to be forced to be sold, to be taken to market. And there's going to be tremendous opportunity for those who put appropriate debt levels in place, underwrite with conservative terms, and can see it through a cycle.
Yeah. So you're ready.
We're ready.
I love it. What else do you see as opportunity in the next couple of years? Where are you going to be putting most of your efforts, in your media empire or your real estate or your residential? You've got multiple things going on. Where do you see yourself headed?
Well, I'll give you the two answers there. What do I see an opportunity, and where do I see us headed? Because they're not the same. Where we're headed is focused through Midwest commercial real estate, specifically industrial, is to find really high quality assets that may not trade in a generation, come available at a reasonable price, and be able to see this thing through the next 5 and 10 years and get us in tremendous stable ground. That's where we're headed. A very large focus in deploying a tremendous amount of money in that avenue. Where I see opportunity, and I've seen opportunity over the last 12 to 18 months, there's tremendous opportunity for strategic lenders out there. I think that people today, right now, in today's environment, lenders are getting rewarded way better than the equity is getting rewarded in deals. So if you can go put money in place from a debt standpoint on a short term, say 12 to 24 months, because there's some really uniqueness and some weirdness in the marketplace, I see there's opportunity there. It's not for us to capitalize on, but I do see the opportunity.
Boy, that is really interesting. That does make sense. It's going to, banks are doing well in certain areas for this.
Sure.
To be a lender in that it's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah, when depending on your type of deal, but some of the banks, we were recently quoted 8.5. When the banks start quoting prime as a starting spot, which I haven't heard anybody quoting prime in I don't know how many years and years and years. There's a marketplace for private lenders, and I have seen, older, private, wealthy folks go in from a debt standpoint and help put deals together, just because the banks have some uniqueness in terms of some challenges, and several banks in terms of their ability to go fill that need in the marketplace.
Super interesting. I love it. Well, give us a little plug for your podcast, because I find it to be really interesting as well.
Oh, well, thank you. You're kind. Passive real estate investing with Mavericks. Passive real estate investing with Mavericks. And we uncover and have tremendous conversations about investing, about a whole multitude of things, with the intent of how do you, the listener, what can you learn? How can you best employ your dollars and cents to invest passively?
And your hosts are from all different aspects of the industry.
All sorts of aspects.
I guess your guests, not your hosts.
Yeah. I know what you meant. Yeah, all sorts of aspects. I mean, from people, general partners who would invest in multifamily, to industrial, to self storage, to retail, the mobile home parks, but then also lenders, economists, a whole host of things. We've got one person coming up who's going to be talking about the high cost of college tuition. How do families pay for that? Because we've gotten a handful of requests from listeners, kind of their stage of life about how do you plan and do this. I thought, well, that would be an interesting guest to have on. We're doing a special
Especially because
series.
it
Yeah.
applies to your life, right?
Sure, you better believe it. Yeah,
You've got a
the
couple
host
of
has an
kids.
interest in this
You've
one.
got some
Yes,
kids you'll be launching pretty soon, right?
3 in high school, and so we're staring right down the barrel of college tuition. Yes.
So what if your kids listen to you, which, not all kids listen to their parents, but
Right.
if your kids listen to you, what would you tell them to do as they look to their future of, going to school and then entering the workforce? What's your advice? Do you want them to follow in their dad's footsteps?
No, good question. It's well, yes and no. And here's what it is. And I literally tell them this. My eldest is a senior in high school. He's got tremendous passion for sports, specifically on the broadcasting side. And so that's what he will be headed towards school to pursue a degree in sports broadcasting. And I've shared with him, it doesn't matter what you do, just be exceptional at it. Right. Ultimately, you're going to produce money. That money is going to have to be invested, and you have a choice. It's going to the stock market. It's going to the real estate market. And I'm telling you, once you get to that point, I will help employ your dollars in the real estate market because it will do better for you. You get really good at that side. You can literally ignore the stock market, which you are not going to be able to understand anyway, and you have no control over.
I love that. Well, that is really good advice for everybody. And I just really thank you for being a guest today. It's really fun to get to know you. Let's find a way to get you some deals.
No, that would be great. Well, you're sweet for having me on. It's such a wonderful conversation. I love the format here, and it's a free flowing, fun conversation. It's just like we're sitting around on the couch or sitting around having coffee someplace. So it's great. I appreciate having me on.
Yeah, I'll buy coffee or wine if you head up to Minneapolis. And
There you
I
go.
look forward to getting to know you better.
Thanks so much, Lisa.